Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, who completed a combat tour in Afghanistan as an infantry officer in the United States Army. Senator, a couple of things that really stood out to me. One was sort of the phrasing that General Milley said. He said the president made the decision on April 14th that we were going to leave Afghanistan. So basically, that's when they got their marching orders, and they had to start dialing down the numbers of people that they had at their disposal to carry out these missions. Then twice we heard we don't have enough people. Essentially, we heard that we didn't have enough people to keep Bagram Air Force Base and also the embassy safe. So we had to make a choice. The choice at that point was to go with the embassy. So they clearly said that they, based on the prescriptive that they got from the White House, didn't have enough people to do both. The other thing is that now we heard several times there from General Austin, well, when it comes to going outside the airport, we could do that. We have the capability to go out and to lift people, to help people to safety in the airport. But our primary objective is to defend the airport, and we only have at this point enough people to secure the airport. We don't have enough people at our disposal to go outside the airport. Your thoughts on that and in general on what we just heard, sir?
Well, Martha, the second point flows from the first point. It was Joe Biden's decision alone to pick 9/11 as what he viewed as a politically symbolic date. Now the symbolism is going to be the Taliban flag flying over what once was the U.S. Embassy on the 20th anniversary of 9/11. The key point, though, in the moment, is that we're trying to rescue thousands of American citizens behind enemy lines. Now, it's important that we try to get out the Afghans who have helped us and who have been vetted so as not to be a security threat. But there are thousands of American citizens in Afghanistan. I'm glad to hear someone from the administration finally say that that is the first priority. But as you heard Secretary Austin, we have no way of helping them get to the airport. The State Department put out an advisory today saying that they cannot guarantee the security of Americans trying to get to the airport. So they are essentially saying that our citizens are on their own trying to get to the airport we have secured. We've heard reports from people on the ground that that's not the case with the British or the French.
Yeah, that is incredibly frustrating. And you could hear in General Milley's voice, he said, yes, we are going to get all Americans out and all partners who want to leave. That is our priority. He said, quote, we are going to get them out. That's what General Milley said. I was a little disappointed that we didn't hear a more definitive answer to the August 31st question, because they're talking about we're going to do as much as we possibly can with the resources that we have. But what happens if you're not done? And there are people who, by that definition, Americans or partners who want to get out, who we just heard the chairman of the Joint Chiefs say they will get out. And August 31st comes and goes.
Martha, I don't know. That's a very good question, because August 31st is fast approaching, especially when we have thousands of American citizens behind enemy lines that our government will not assure their safety. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about whether this is like Saigon in 1975. If we don't get those Americans out, it could be like Tehran in 1979, when a mere 52 hostages held by the Ayatollahs paralyzed America for more than a year. Imagine if there are hundreds or even thousands of effective American hostages that are trapped in Afghanistan because of Joe Biden's chaotic, disorganized, ill-planned evacuation from that country.
So let me ask you about this as well, because a big story today was that the intelligence suggested that this could change rapidly and that perhaps the Taliban could force the Afghan forces to fall and Kabul to fall even very quickly. And we had pushback from that by General Milley. He said, we basically looked at a lot of different scenarios. I'm paraphrasing here to a certain extent. He said no intelligence said that this would happen in 11 days. So we weren't prepared for that, but we didn't have any input, any intel that indicated that that was a situation that we had to prepare for.
Martha, I don't want to get into classified assessments, but I'll simply say that anyone who's been involved on the inside, whether in Congress or the executive branch, has known the situation is deteriorating rapidly. We pressed the Biden administration first on how they plan to get American citizens out of Afghanistan before their withdrawal, and second, how they plan to prevent Afghanistan from becoming a safe haven for al-Qaeda and ISIS and other terrorists again. We've never heard any answers from that. Joe Biden earlier this summer was acknowledging that he overrode the military advice of the Department of Defense. And I think those chickens are coming home to roost now. His disastrous foreign policy judgment, now that he's finally in charge after 50 years of not being in charge.
Well, I mean, it's so clear that this situation spun out of control. And I think a lot of Americans, and I know a lot of people who fought in Afghanistan, as you did, want there to be some accountability, because our men and women on the ground carry out the mission that's given to them. But they also want to know that there's accountability in terms of what they expect at the higher levels. With regard to the State Department, what do you think about the fact that we still have not heard? We heard from the deputy today, but we haven't heard from the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, at all at this point. And there were, I think, some sort of pointed comments made about the State Department from the two generals that we just heard from, saying that, basically, we can protect people once they get to the airport, but the State Department has to get them here. And at this point, we have planes that are leaving that aren't even full because the paperwork hasn't processed. We've all heard stories about people who've been waiting for months to get their special immigrant visa paperwork processed. And we also know people have burned or destroyed it because they're afraid if they're found with it, that the Taliban is going to kill them.
Yeah, Martha, it's time to hear from the Secretary of State. He shouldn't be hiding behind his deputy or his spokesman. And it is the case that the military has gone into a very chaotic circumstance. They've secured the airfield, but only the airfield. They have not been able to get any Americans out from behind enemy lines. And it was the State Department's responsibility for months to try to identify all those Americans and get them out, just like any Afghans who were eligible and vetted for security reasons to be able to evacuate as well. And we have not heard from Tony Blinken in almost 3 days now.
Yeah. Senator Cotton, thank you. Very good to have you with us today.
Thank you.